Vermont Classic Garage. Today, now that we know this thing starts and runs, we're going to start actually fixing it. And I know what I'm going to tackle first. First thing we got to have a go at is this flat tire. So I kind of think it's just held on with a cotter pin. Yep, there it is. We'll get it off of there, get it in the vise, and see if we can get it broken down and find the tube, because the valve is gone. It's gone inside the tire. This tire doesn't look all that healthy, but we'll see what we can do. Well, let's see what happens. Well, look at that. And while I was at it, while I had the tire inflator out, I went around and just double checked the other 3 wheels and made sure they're all inflated. So there it is. She's sitting on 4 wheels again. So here's our tire done. For sake of keeping the length of this video reasonable, I didn't include the actual procedure of how I fixed it, but what I did, I'll make a separate video of that, and you can follow the link up here in the top corner if you're interested in seeing how we actually fix the tire. All right, what we're gonna do now is try and fix this dash. I don't know if somewhere along the line this thing got rolled or got hit. It seems to me that this bracket here on the side is all bent up. I think it's taken some kind of an impact on the side here. And now you've got, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this all apart. We're gonna fish plate all this broken plastic, rivet it all back together, and put it back on. We just have to remove a few things to get this thing out of here. We take off this little cover, and you can see there's a nut that'll let the steering wheel come off. The steering wheel is off. Now we're going to get the controls off. I'll probably just let them come with the dash rather than take them out. So we'll just unhook the choke cable and unhook the throttle cable, and they can just stay with it. On this side, what we've got to do is unhook a few wires. That's the headlight switch. And this here is our ignition switch. And the ammeter, now how the heck does that unplug? I think it's just an inductive loop. Yeah. It's just an inductive loop, so we just literally unloop it. And we'll loop it back in when we put it back together. Now there's a couple of fasteners. The ones on this side are gone. There's 2 tapping screws on this side and a couple of carriage bolts that go down through it, and this whole dash should come right off. The carriage bolt on this side does not want to budge. It's spinning. Putting a carriage bolt in a piece of plastic is a bad idea. And then to make matters worse, they use a locking nut, a nylon locking nut on the bottom of it. So this thing is just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. There isn't really any way to hold it. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to drill down through the head of it and see if I can, I'm either going to drill the head right off of it, or I will try to use a screw extractor to hold it and turn the nut from underneath with a wrench. Turns out this one didn't have a nylon lock nut, it had a rust lock nut. Rust locks nuts way better than nylon. So what I ended up doing was I drilled 2 little holes in the top and used this to hold it, and then I was able to get it apart. So now our dash should just lift right off, and we'll see what we've got. So let's see if I got everything. Oh, darn it, it looks like I did. So what we'll do here is, you can see all these cracks and breaks. I'm going to get rid of all these bad repairs that somebody just repaired this without taking it off the tractor is what the problem is. So we'll get rid of all this crap and we'll start from scratch. So you can see here how the top of the subframe here is bent up and this bracket is bent up. So we'll get that all mashed back down where it should be. I'll double check the other side, make sure it's okay, and then we'll get the dash stitched up. Here we can see, at least I used black rivets so it doesn't look so bad. There's all our fish plates that we put in the back of it. It's good, it's strong. It might not be as strong as it was originally, but it's okay for now. While we've got this thing apart with the dash and everything off, it's a good time to have a look at the belts. You can see this one's all cracked. You can see here there's a bolt sticking up, which should actually have a 4-inch idler pulley on it, or I think a 3.5 inch. Anyway, it's supposed to have an idler pulley on it, which you can see is long gone. This belt here is not too hot either. So I went up, I looked them up, found out what they were. We went up to town and I got 3 belts for it. As far as this idler pulley here, a new one was like $40. So I think I found something around here that'll work. All we can do is try. The belts are easy enough to change. The deck belt, you can see here, it just, you take off these 2 guards and it just pops off. And then you have to remove, there's a little bulkhead up in there. You take these 4 screws out the side, the bulkhead comes down. That gives you access to get at the primary drive belt. And then the secondary drive belt is behind it. Shouldn't be too hard to do. Oh, and also while it's up on the stand, I want to have a look at the underneath the mower deck, see what the blade looks like. There we are. So we got this thing down. Needs a little bit of work. One of these guide bolts has become discombobulated. We can fix that up. Anyway, we'll get that cleaned up and put it in after. So here you can see, oh, let me get under here. So you can see there's the primary drive belt up there. So once we get that off the pulley, we could drop it down over here and fish our new one in. I think we have to take the rear one off first. To get the secondary drive belt out, we first have to, you can see down in here, there's a guide bolt that normally is right against that pulley to keep this belt on. So we have to take the nut off the bottom. That lets you get the belt past. And now you'll see, let me see here. Yeah, see here under the seat, it gets captured by the bracket that holds the forward and reverse lever. So what we have to do, there's 2 bolts in behind the back wheel there. So we're going to have to pull the back wheel off, take those 2 bolts out, and then we should be able to just spin this bracket around and get this belt out of here. Well, it's that easy. I just took the darn seat off. So now you can see, we'll just turn that out of the way and our belt can come out. We'll have to ride it up this handle and get it out, and then we can get the new one in. Then we'll screw that bracket back to the chassis, and that's that part of it done at least. Okay, now we can move on to the primary drive belt. We'll just pull it down. I think we'll just pull it down. There we are. Now I'll show you what we have to do to get it off the back of the pulley. Now you can see down here, to get this belt off the intermediate pulley here, there's a pin there that keeps the belt on the pulley, and you can't really get that pin out. So what we're going to do is pull this little snap ring off. So there, we got the little snap ring off. And now we should be able to just pull this pulley up, and that releases the belt, see? And we'll push it back down, and then we should be able to get the belt out from underneath the tractor. Hopefully there's no other linkages or anything going through it. I'll know in a second. And here it is. Look at that. It's the original one. Got the MTD number on it. Look. Look. That's not good. So now we can fish this guy down in through there. We'll get it on the crankshaft first, I guess. And then we'll get it back up on that pulley after. These older lawn tractors, they're not too bad, but they are not like, you know, they're not quite as engineered as the newer ones, where you could just, like my L111 Deere, I could pretty much just crawl underneath that, the deck belt at least, and just, I think I have to release one spring, pull an idler, but I could change the deck belt like in seconds. You know, this one's not quite that fun. But anyway, it is what it is. What do you want? I bought this thing for $37 at the auction. So now, I'm going to grease up the bushings on this, and we'll drop the pulley back on. And you can see here, this is how your variable speeds work, right? As you increase and decrease the tension on the rear pulley, it moves that up and down. And that kind of works like I guess kind of like a snowmobile transmission. And that's how you get your variable speeds. Okay, we got our little, you can't see it because of all the grease, but that's pushed right down. Our thrust washer is there and the snap ring is back in. I was a little bit pissed when I went to the hardware store. They have two lines of belts. They've got the standard cheap ones and these nice Kevlar ones. And I was pissed that they only had one of the three in the standard cheap belts, but after getting this far into changing them, I'm glad I got the Kevlar ones because this is not a job I want to do every week because the cheap belt broke. Now what we got to do is we have to change this idler. So what we're going to do is this is its arm or its bracket. It's spring loaded. So what we're going to do is get a vice grip on it. And that should keep it in place. And now I have to get down in there and get get that bolt out. And we'll get this idler, our new idler installed. This here is our idler pulley. It's going to go down in there. I was too cheap to buy. The right one is $40. This one's a little bit smaller. All we could do is try it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll buy the right one later. So what we have to do is I have to make up some kind of a bushing for the middle of it because I might be able to use this. You can see here, that's the center post of whatever was in there before. Of the old, that's all that's left of the original idler. I don't know where it went, but it's not here. So we might be able to just go over to the press and push that into there. Oh, look at that. Perfect. All right, we're all set. All right, so you can see here, that's looking a little better. We've got our idler pulley on. I just have to tighten up the bolt. And we got our belts on. Now we can start figuring out the deck belt. Now what we're up against is this. This is the guide bolt for the deck belt. And while you can see, it's come discombobulated. So what we got to do is get this captive nut off of here and weld it back on. This one actually welds to the other side of this plate. And then we'll, so this guy's going to weld on here. And then we'll put it back together and we should be all set. I got this one welded back in. And I also noticed there were two of them on this side that were just ripped right out and gone. So we welded a couple of nuts in. I'm just letting everything cool off. And then we can get this thing back up underneath the front of the tractor. We've got another issue here. This spindle doesn't seem to want to turn. The other one turns fine, but this one does not. So it's probably got a bad bearing in it. It's probably just like a little 6204 or something. I've probably got some. So we're going to get it out of here, push it apart in the press, and see what we see inside it. So here's our messed up spindle. I'm going to go over now and over to the hydraulic press and see if I can push it apart. And then we'll try and figure out what's going on with it. I got it freed up and got it to turn, but she's kind of noisy. Well, after a lot of hydraulic pressing and saying bad words and stuff, I finally got this bloody thing apart. Here's the old bearings, and lucky for me, I had a couple of new bearings for it kicking around. They're 6204 OU. So we're going to go ahead now and push this thing back together. First thing we do is push the new bearings into the retainers. And then we'll push everything back onto the shaft. Well, that's better. Good. Now we can go ahead and put this thing back in. There's our spindle back in the deck. Now I've gone and put a little edge on the blade. These blades are pretty rough. If this thing ends up working okay and sticking around here, I'll spring for a new set. Seeing as how I didn't have to buy a new spindle, I'll spring for new blades. That's good. I'll do the other blade when I get over to the other side. What we're going to do now is put this thing back up. And then we can get our deck belt changed and get all these guides put back in. What we have to do now is pull the pins and drop these arms because there you can see there the belt goes around them. So we'll get those arms out of the way, get the new belt swapped in there, and then we can get this put back together. I don't think our original deck belt was long for this world, eh? Now, what I found out is that when the deck, it does have a little bit of slop in it. It's turned off now. So the blades should be able to turn without the engine turning. And you can see here, it does grab a little bit. You can see there, it's grabbing a little bit on the engine pulley. That's because these pulleys are so old and so rusty that they're grabbing the belt a little bit. Once this thing runs a little bit and gets the pulleys polished up, it won't do that. When the deck is up in the off position, the blades will not turn. Alrighty, back on our wheels. It's looking a lot better now, isn't it? I think I can go ahead and put the dash back on. Now we got the steering wheel on. Look at this. We got a bunch of play in the tie rod end. Not much I can do about that. But there is something I can do about that, where the steering arm is keyed onto the spindle. We can tighten this up a bit and take away some of that play. And look, we've got a fuel line leaking. I'm just going to stick a needle nose vice grip or something on there so it's not dripping gas all night. But anyway, there. So we at least got the steering arm tightened up on the spindle there. I did a few little things. The crab, this little crab here that holds the oil filler tube, it was gone and that was flopping all over and it was leaking oil all over the place. So I just got a piece of metal, made that. So that's on there good now. I replaced the fuel line because it was actually leaking and put a filter in it. It didn't have a filter. I found this back motor mount bolt here was loose, so I replaced that. What I've got to deal with now is the air cleaner. This is the base of it. It goes in there like that. And then there's a filter, and then there's a cover that goes over top of it. Well, this is all I've got. The filter is $36. The foam is another, I don't know how much. And then you've got to get all the little wing nuts and stuff, and I still don't have the cover for it. So anyway, I'm fiddling around here. Before I buy all that stuff, I'm trying to find a different way. I did find this. I was hoping I had one a little bit smaller, and I could make a little elbow to go on here, and we could just use that. But I'm not sure this one is going to fit under the hood. But what I'm going to do right now is at least get the nose of it on and see if there's room that we could jam this thing in there. Well, pleasantly surprised. I put the nose back on, and what do you know? This thing fits right in there. So what I got to do now is come up with some kind of a adapter to get from that to this. We'll just use a couple of pieces of exhaust pipe, or we'll find something. Give me a minute. So here's all we did. I just got some old ABS fittings and I used a sanitary tee and a couple of hunks of pipe and stuff to make this adapter so I could screw this thing on. We're all set. It's perfect. One thing I need to do before we start actually trying to use this thing is change the oil. And I just pulled the dipstick out and there wasn't too much on it. So we'll get what we could get out of this thing and put some fresh stuff in it. Okay, there's a fresh load of Mobil 1 right to the full mark. So now it is time to get this thing out and see if it'll actually mow grass. I don't have a battery for it, but because this runs on a magneto ignition, you literally just need the battery to start it, and then it doesn't need the battery once it's running. So that'll be okay for now, and I'll have to dig up a battery for it. Well, let's see what happens. Well, let's try and mow. Well, our little mowing test went pretty well, but a few problems did pop up. So we'll deal with those in the next and I hope final episode. Until then, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Claremont Classic Garage. I hope you will come back and see us again next time. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.